My name is Tanya Del Rio. I'm the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Women's Advancement. Thank you. Very excited to be here. In our office, we focus on economic equity, we focus on women's safety, but we also focus on women's representation. And we don't do that just because it's fun. We do it because it's very important. And I'm going to just give you two brief examples of why that's important, and then we're going to go on and name this bridge. So, Sabna Karian, she's a researcher at the University of Washington. She demonstrated through her experiments that by losing the Star Wars and the Star Trek posters in a room, in a lab, and nothing against Star Wars and Star Trek, I happen to be a fan, but she lost those and replaced them with neutral art, and then measured people's associations between women and careers in science, and both for men and for women, just changing the pictures in the lab. She measured a significant increase in how women and science were associated. Another example, a simple screensaver. So Joanna Matu and Marianne Smith, plus their team, they had an experiment where they showed pictures on a screen to people who were going to give a speech, just like I'm doing now. And the picture was either a female politician or a male politician, right before they gave the speech. Now for the men, it didn't really matter what picture they saw. They went off, they gave their speech, everything was great. But for the women, the ones that saw the picture of the female politician went on to give a longer speech, and they went on to give a speech that was more highly rated by the external observers that were participating in the experiment. It's just, thank you. It's just a little decision, right? It's just a screensaver. That's why I'm so excited, because today we're not doing a little decision, a little screensaver. We're doing a bridge. So imagine what the effect of that is on little girls that, you know, they cross the bridge and they ask, who are the Grimke sisters? Can I be like them? Can I be brave? Can I be courageous? Can I be ahead of the curve like them? And the answer is going to be yes. So for me, that's really exciting. I want to say thank you to some of the people that made this happen, where the ideas were born. Our Department of Public Works has some amazing feminist men. I'm going to name a few of them that were a part of this. Para Jai Fire Singer. We practiced I don't see you, but we practiced the last name. Para, thank you so much. We also have Ben Son, who is the Chief Bridge Engineer for the Department of Public Works. I want to shout out also consultant Joe Jill and contractor Joe Joyoso. Thank you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce another very staunch advocate of women, a true feminist, my boss, Mayor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Tanya. And how about a nice round of applause for Tanya Del Rio? Tanya's doing an amazing job in our Women's Advancement Office. She worked there when Megan Costello was the first director of that office, and then when Megan moved on, Tanya stepped in and has done an amazing job, and it's great to watch her just take the role and run with the role in so many different ways. And I want to congratulate Tanya on a great job today. And Tanya's been in that role now for about a year and a half. Yeah. And we already have a bridge, so we're doing good stuff. So I want to thank you. There's a lot more coming. The elected officials that are here, I want to thank them all. I want to thank City Councilor Tim McCarthy for his involvement in pushing to get this bridge redone. State Senator Mike Rush is here. Thank you, Mike Rush, for your work and your help with the state. We have Ricardo Arroyo, City Council-elect for Hyde Park. Thank you, Ricardo, for being with us today. From our administration, there's a few people I just want to give a shout-out to. I want to thank Chris Osgood, Chief of Streets, who's responsible for putting this together. And then in the city of Boston, we're fortunate to have what I would say, and there's no question about it, the best housing team in the country. But the Chief of Housing for the city of Boston, Sheila Dillon. Thank you, Sheila, for your work. The new head of our Boston Housing Authority, Kay Bennett, is here. Thank you, Kay. our Chief of Policy, Joyce Lenahan, is somewhere around here. Here, Joyce. And there's so many other folks that I apologize, I can't give you all a shout out, but you know who you are, and thank you very much for what you do. An inspirational leader in this country, she's gonna come up here and speak in a few minutes, but Barbara Lee and the Barbara Lee Family Foundation is truly a champion for women's advancement in so many different ways, and I want to thank her for her leadership. I want to thank her for her knowledge and what she's been able to teach me as the mayor. In so many different areas, and anytime we pick up the phone, we call Barbara, she's there to help, but Barbara doesn't realize the conversations that we have, she's educating me and educating so many people around the country, so I want to thank Barbara Lee for being here with us today. And Barbara's going to come up in a few minutes. Catherine Al Gore from the Mass Historic Society, thank you, Catherine, for being here with us today. Elisa Birdseye from the Hyde Park Historical Society, thank you for being here today. And the only reason why I'm not introducing every single person here is that it's too cold. So thank you for being here today. I want to thank Public Works, from the engineers and the architects and the designers to the workers, to the people who built this bridge. This is a $4 million investment in this neighborhood. It's helping to make the entire area safer, more walkable, more accessible for everyone. This bridge is also a monument to two American heroes who lived a half a mile from where we're standing right now, Sarah and Angelina Grimke. The Grimke sisters believed in the value of dignity for every single human being. They spent their entire lives speaking out against slavery and fighting for women's suffrage. They were fearless, bold, and determined. Angelina wrote that equality is a cause worth dying for. The Grimke sisters should be a household name. In Boston, we're making sure their story's told. We're dedicating this bridge as a commemoration and also a call to action. The work is not finished, not by a long shot. Voter suppression is still a problem in our country. Women and people of color are still underrepresented and underpaid in almost every single sector of society. Too often, women's contributions get overlooked. In the United States, less than 10% of the public monuments are named for women. In Boston, we're working to change that. Representation matters. Tanya talked about it. It does matter. When young girls and boys see landmarks like this bridge named after extraordinary women, it makes a big impact. We need to empower women and girls in every sense of the word. This is the core value of my administration. Right now, we're leading a national movement to close the wage gap for women, especially women of color, not by passing legislation and talking about it, but by actually taking action and doing it. We're changing the corporate culture here, seeing more women and people of color on boards in corner offices here in Boston and Massachusetts. At City Hall, we'll reach unprecedented diversity in city leadership and hiring throughout the organization. Women in my administration lead some of the most important work: policy, finance, racial equity, housing, workforce development, public schools. All of these departments and cabinets are led by women. Soon we're going to welcome the most diverse city council in Boston's history. It'll be a majority of people of color and a majority of females for the first time. To talk about Tanya and her office a little bit. Our Office of Women's Advancement does incredible work empowering women and girls in all aspects of life. All year long, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of women winning their right to vote. We are honoring the incredible women who paved the way for civil rights movements that continues today. And we're honoring the women who are making history in our community in 2019. I am proud that this bridge will bear the name the Grimke sisters forever. But the real way we honor them is by finishing the work that they started. I want to thank everyone who's here and part of the movement in Boston. Those of you that aren't, I welcome you to the movement. And I want to thank all the community members, and I want to thank Hyde Park, the residents of this neighborhood who supported this effort. And I want to apologize because this bridge was a long time coming, but I'm glad we're able to do it. So to the residents of Hyde Park, thank you for the community meetings, thank you for your support, thank you for your patience, and thank you for everything you do.
We now welcome to the podium City Councilor Tim McCarthy.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Hyde Park, everybody. It's a beautiful morning. It's not as cold as you'd think. Not that bad. The sun's nice. I just want to say about 4 or 5 years ago when I first was elected, I was at the Hyde Park Historical Society, and that's when I first heard about the Grimke sisters. And I was kind of ashamed that I lived in Hyde Park my entire life, almost 50 years now, birthday presents to come in a couple of months. And I never really heard of the Grimke sisters. And when I was at the Historical Society at the library, I learned an awful lot and didn't realize that they lived here and learned their history and their story. Now, everybody behind me is going to talk about the history, so I'm not going to talk about their history, as we know. But it was a phenomenal thing, and when Public Works realized we needed to replace this bridge, that was the first thing we talked about. And Joyce Linehan gave me a call. She's like, we have to rename that bridge. We have to name it something. It just can't be the Dana Bridge. We're spending $4 million. Let's do something right. And I said, what about the Grimke sisters? And she was like, thank you. And the phone went out, and I was like, all right, and off we go. The conversation went something like that. So, Joyce, thanks. But I really want to talk about something I'm more familiar with, more than the Grimke sisters, and that's this building in Public Works. This is District 8. They run snow operations out of here, and I was a part of this team for a long, long time. I spent a lot of nights overnight in that building, making sure that when you woke up in the morning, you could go to work. So I'm a big fan of Public Works, and I wanted to thank them, really. Chris Osgood, Chief of Streets, I really want to thank you for your effort and everything that we've done here today. But it's really, you know, the one guy who's been a friend of mine for like 20 years now, Para J. Singh. Where are you, Para? Yeah, PJ for his friends. He's hiding around here somewhere. So we've got a lot of things going on in Hyde Park now. I know we had some great news the other day. The Rogers School is going to have some LBGT senior housing, which is a phenomenal project. Another project just got passed for Fairmont Ave. We're going to have some more density and hopefully open up some establishments and restaurants. But we had a lot of issues with traffic and congestion, and we needed some help. And over the last 6 years, through Mayor Walsh's help and our work, we've got Walcott Square getting redone for $2 million. We've got the end of the street here getting redone, and now Cleary Square is going to be looked at. But it was Para J. Singh who came to me about 4 years ago and said, listen, we can keep fixing this bridge so the concrete's not falling on the people in the canoes underneath. But at some point in time, we're going to have to do it. And Para was the one who said, you know, if we hold it off, if we just fix it little bit by little bit, we can do it in one summer. I said, are you kidding? One summer? He said, I'm going to close it on Memorial Day, and I'm going to open it on Labor Day. The school buses aren't going to miss the trip. We'll work with Chief Hooley and EMS to make sure everything's fine. We'll work with Public Works to make sure everything's fine. And you know what? There's a lot of moving parts in making that happen, and I can't tell you how happy I am that Para J. Singh is a Hyde Park resident, and he's the chief engineer, and he really made this happen in one summer. So thank you, Para. So I'll step aside because it is actually a little colder than I thought. And so I'll step aside now, and I just really want to thank everybody for being here, and welcome to Hyde Park.
Just a couple words more than the mayor said about Barbara Lee, because for the Office of Women's Advancement, it's been a real pleasure to work with your team on making sure that we take the opportunity not to celebrate, not just to commemorate, but to connect the efforts of the suffragists of the past to the efforts of today, and everything that we need to continue to do to make sure that every person is enfranchised, able to vote, and able to participate in our democracy. So thank you so much for everything you do. And I just wanted to name the two members of your team that are here, Amanda and Nicole. It's been a pleasure, and the next year is hopefully going to be a pleasure. We're going to be doing a lot more things, activities, such as this one, but different ones throughout the year, so look out for them until the anniversary of the passing of the 19th Amendment next year in 2020. So with that, I'm going to introduce Barbara Lee.
This is great. Thank you so much, Tanya, for your warm welcome, and thank you to Mayor Marty Walsh and the Mayor's Office of Women's Advancement, as well as the Hyde Park Historical Society for bringing this project to fruition. A city map of Boston landmarks is a who's who of famous names, like the Paul Revere House, the Grimke Bridge, and the Tip O'Neill Tunnel. Until now, few of those names have belonged to women. This is not because our city has had any shortage of important women. Women like Lucy Stone, Julia Ward Howe, and Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, who joined together to found the trailblazing American Women's Suffrage Association in 1869. And like so many others, they had been inspired by two visionary abolitionist sisters, Sarah and Angelina Grimke, who we are honoring today. The Grimkes came to Massachusetts in the 1830s to speak out against slavery. And through that work, the Grimkes and others, many women, came to recognize that they too were not free and equal to participate in public life. Their fight for equality sparked the national movement for women's rights that continues to this day. The Grimke sisters paved the way for generations of women to march through these streets to pursue justice, equal rights, equal opportunity, and equal representation. Even so, it's taken a long time for our sheroes to get the recognition that they deserve. I've often said, thank you, good. I've often said that Boston is the original old boys club, which is why it is so important to elect more women, something I and so many others are working hard to do. And it's also important to recognize our male allies, like Mayor Marty Walsh, who makes it a priority to have strong women at the table. Women like Joyce Linehan, who Mayor Walsh chose to be his chief of policy, who was instrumental in making all of this happen. I have always believed that we need to learn about history in order to make history. When girls and young women see women recognized as heroes and leaders, they believe that they too can become heroes and leaders. And that is why the Grimke Sisters Bridge is so important. It connects the social activism of the past with the movement leaders of today and tomorrow. It is a bridge to women's empowerment. It is a bridge to equality. It is a bridge to a brighter future. It reminds us that the ideas that once seemed radical can, with time and perseverance, become a new standard. And how great is that? Speaking of ideas that once seemed radical, in 1837, Angelina Grimke wrote, "I contend that woman has just as much right to sit in solemn council, in conventions, conferences, associations, and general assemblies as man. Just as much right to sit in the presidential chair of the United States." Wouldn't Angelina and Sarah Grimke be pleased to know that as we dedicate this bridge in their memory, just over 100 years after Massachusetts ratified the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote, more history is being made. Just this year, for the first time ever, we have had multiple women candidates on a presidential debate stage. Give me some applause for that. Thank you. Okay, and just this month, as the mayor just said, we elected the first ever majority women Boston City Council, led by women of color. So the Grimke sisters would be pleased, yes, but there is still more work to do. As the mayor said, the 19th Amendment was at first effectively and unfortunately suffrage for women, white women only, and it took another 50 years or so for black women to be able to vote. And voter suppression does continue until this day. Congress and the White House are still the old boys club for now. We have much further to go, more bridges to cross, more highways and high offices to claim. So I am proud that the women of Boston and our male allies are once again leading the march, and I'm thrilled to add the Grimke Sisters Bridge to our beautiful, historic city. Thank you so much.
Catherine Algor, President of the Massachusetts Historical Society, welcome to the podium.
I don't want to be too tall. Well, it's such an honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you so much to everybody who got me here, especially Amy Bennett and Joyce Linehan. And I'm also wanted to say, I don't know, I haven't met her yet, but we are honored also to have in our midst Colleen Jenkins. Colleen, are you around? Right here. Where? Right here. Oh, yay. Hi, Colleen. Hi. Colleen is the co-founder and the president of the Elizabeth Cady Stanton Trust, which is dedicated to the promotion of women and dedicated to women's history. And in addition to that, she is the great-great-granddaughter of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So, Colleen, I hope you won't think I'm being saucy when I say we have a historical artifact in our midst.
The mitochondrial DNA.
So, right at this moment, we Americans are engaged in a lively and very fitting conversation about memorials and commemorations. Who should we remember? Who gets a statue made or a street named after them? It's only natural then at this moment that we might wonder if these two 19th century figures are worthy of the honor of this bridge. Well, as a historian of women's lives and gender, and the president of your historical society, let me assure you that they are. The Grimke sisters are more than deserving of recognition. They are worthy of emulation as well. So, who are these women? Daughters of a prominent slaveholding family, Angelina and Sarah became nationally known social reformers, leaders in the abolitionist and women's suffrage movements, and they were doing this in the 1820s and the 1830s. And I say it that way because it's always interesting that at any moment in time, there's a small group of people who are truly thinking ahead of their time. Racism ran deep in the United States, even among white Americans who supported the end of slavery. So the Grimkes combined their work to abolish slavery with an unwavering belief in the inherent dignity and humanity of African Americans and women of all races. And as Barbara alluded, these attitudes were considered dangerously radical even among reformers. These positions are even more remarkable when one considers that the sisters were born not only into the South, but into the powerful elite in the heart of slave country, South Carolina. Angelina and Sarah show us that, notwithstanding our own backgrounds, our own historical contexts, there are always people who can see the moral arc of justice. Famed for their writings and speeches, the Grimkes dared to argue for human rights at a time when a woman speaking out was deemed scandalous. They were the first American women to advocate publicly for both abolition and women's rights, and they were also the first to address mixed-gender audiences. Angelina was the first woman to address a legislative body in the United States. The sisters had to defend those radical views and their own right to speak as women. And I don't need to tell you, they were attacked from all sides, renounced by local governments, and denounced from pulpits all up and down the East Coast. But their arguments were powerful. Even now, their words resonate. As early as 1838, Sarah was arguing against any special treatment for women. She declared, men and women were created equal. What is right for a man to do is right for a woman. I seek no favors for my sex. All I ask of our brethren is that they will take their feet from off our necks and permit us to stand upright on that ground which God destined us to occupy. By the 1850s, so that's just 20 years, that's a minute, before they took the podium, those really radical abolition ideas became widely accepted in the North. And 10 years later, in the 1860s, the Union fought for those ideals. During that time, the sisters retreated from the public eye. But it was several years after the Civil War ended that the sisters performed an act of love so powerful, it might be their greatest legacy to us. In 1868, Angelina and Sarah discovered they had 3 nephews, Archibald, Francis, and John Grimke, born of a relationship between their brother and Nancy Weston, a mixed-race enslaved woman. At the time, few white Americans would have regarded this as good news. Any extramarital liaison was a scandal. A mixed-race baby would have been a shameful secret. But not to Angelina and Sarah. Not only did they acknowledge their nephews and Nancy Weston as family, but they also brought the 2 oldest brothers north, supported them, and paid for their educations. And those men would go on to become prominent leaders, helping, among other things, to found the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. What is profound about, yes, please do, yes. But what is most profound about this chapter in the lives of the Grimke sisters is they did not just acknowledge and support their nephews. They fussed over their schooling and where they were going to spend their vacations. They wrote to them and sent them care packages while they were at college, and in addition to paying tuition, made sure they had pocket money. They loved their nephews. The sisters lived their ideals to the letter. A bridge is a fitting choice to honor these American heroes and role models. The two sisters transcended the racial divides of their world to bring together the Grimke family, black and white. There are divides to be bridged in our time. Let the Grimke sisters show us the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm definitely bringing my biracial daughter here as soon as she learns how to speak. I'm now introducing Elisa Birdseye. She is the curator of the Hyde Park Historical Society and also is the former Main Streets director for Hyde Park.
No, thank you. No, I can't claim that honor. Thank you very much. Good morning, and it's a really good morning. Thank you, Mayor Walsh, and fellow speakers and guests. I promise to be brief given the weather. When it comes to historical figures being memorialized in this country, women have been largely overlooked. And since what is visible becomes accepted history, to fail to honor the role women have played in the struggles for equality and human rights denies not only the women themselves their just recognition, it deprives all future generations of understanding what happened fully in any given historical moment. Knowledge of history is critical to understanding where you are now. If you don't know how you got here, it's almost impossible to make meaningful changes for the better. I would like to recognize Patrice Gattozzi and Boston Women, Inc., who are here to celebrate with us. This organization was founded in Hyde Park to recognize strong women, both past and present, who exemplify the character of Angelina and Sarah. They've been honoring the Grimke sisters for many years with an award in their name at the annual Women Amongst Us Tea, celebrated in March, which is Women's History Month. They invite you to join them in 2020 for their 10th anniversary tea on March 21st at Granite Links as they pay tribute to 4 incredible women who are making a difference today and in their Boston communities. My name is Elisa Birdseye, and I stand here representing the Hyde Park Historical Society. We were founded in 1887 by Theodore Weld, the husband of Angelina Grimke, shortly after the founding of Hyde Park itself as an independent town in 1868. Hyde Park was one of the first planned communities in the country, created as a vision of the 20 associates who purchased land and built homes on Fairmount Hill, overlooking the Neponset River. Sarah and Angelina and her husband and children lived in one of those houses less than a mile from this location. Hyde Park has been the home of many people of historical interest, including John Batchelder, the historian of the Civil War, Rebecca Lee Crumpler, the first African-American woman physician in the country, artists John Joseph Enneking and Childe Hassam, William Monroe Trotter, one of the founders of the NAACP, Hall of Fame baseball player George Wright, and our beloved late Mayor Tom Menino. It is the home of Camp Meigs, the site where the Massachusetts 54th Regiment mustered as one of the first African-American regiments who fought for the Union in the Civil War. But Sisters Sarah and Angelina Grimke are among the most important. Today, by dedicating this bridge in their honor, we are reminding people of the work done by 2 of the greatest figures in the abolition and women's rights movements. Sarah and Angelina Grimke are remarkable in any age, but even more so for the time in which they lived. In 1835, from her home in South Carolina, Angelina wrote an impassioned letter to William Lloyd Garrison in Boston, stating her position on slavery and abolition. If persecution is the means which God has ordained for the accomplishment of this great end, emancipation, then I feel as if I could say, let it come, for it is my deep, solemn, deliberate conviction that this is a cause worth dying for. This was 25 years before the start of the Civil War, which finally ended the formal legal status of slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. Angelina and Sarah became leading figures of the abolition movement, speaking to mixed audiences called in those days promiscuous audiences. That is of men and women like we have here today. This got them denounced from the pulpit of the conservative congregational houses of worship in New England. Angelina was the first woman in America to address a state legislature, and she did so on the subject of abolition. She spoke from personal knowledge with great power. What became clear to both Sarah and Angelina was that in order to fully accomplish their goals as abolitionists, they would have to also have the freedom from the roles and expectations of women at the time. They would need to have the right to vote. And in 1870, they led the first women's march in the country here in Hyde Park and cast a vote in a local election. It is fitting and right to name a bridge in honor of these humble yet towering women. A bridge symbolizes both movement and connection. There has been movement towards justice for human rights, but let us not forget the struggle, the dedication, the sacrifice of everyone who has made this progress possible. Let their struggle inspire and remind us to always be an active participant in our community, to vote in elections, and to stand up against injustice wherever we see it. Maybe as a young student from the GRU or the Roosevelt or the Renaissance School moves over this bridge, they will be inspired by the words that are stated on the plaque, to learn more about the women who are honored here, and maybe they will become the next warrior for justice that will move us all toward a better future.